what would you say the greatest, the biggest shortfalls or missteps that you did on the way? What would you say, Pierre? That you learned the most from, you could say, or that you would never do again, or I don't know.
I think I had some salespeople that overpromise. They are very good at selling to us instead of selling to the customers. So we had some people who would help us also in Asia Pacific. That cost us a lot of money, and that fell through, didn't work. That's one thing.
Yeah.
And the other thing is when you listen to advisors,
Yes.
outsiders. The thing is, if you are in a leading position, okay, then there's no book. You can't read the book. You're writing the book. So in that terms, you need to trust yourself a lot and go back, almost like meditating or understanding and making.
Where did I come from?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, but also understanding the marketplace and where the trends are going.
Yes.
And we listen to some
Bad advice.
Yeah, and that costs a lot of one thing. And another thing that I regret is that we had an open policy. We talked about things, but when we were being acquired by a company, we had a lot of discussions on the floor, and that defocused from product development and sales, and that's not good. And when we couldn't find the terms for that acquirer, we fell back, and that's really
a loss of time and
yes,
money,
yes.
of course.
And in terms of development and speed, when you lose a lot of speed, it takes you will have another runtime to pick up speed again, and that's a costly mistake, So you should keep some of the information closed doors. So this open
Culture.
policy. Yeah,
That's where the culture actually hits you in the back. You have to.
Yeah.
We have always open.
Yeah.
But you don't know.
Yeah, but it's a good learning. And just for the rest of us here, how do you now see that a salesperson is overselling to you? How can you spot it?
Well, I try to be tough in interviews, but never as tough as I am with a salesperson. I need to see a track record, and I want to see a projection of how you're going to do this, not that you can do it. So I'm not amazed by saying a number here or another, I want to see how they're doing it. And I really check up references on salespeople.
Yeah.
They are if they are, I don't want to call them liars, but they overpromise. And that I'm very, very careful with that today.
So watch the plan, the steps
Yeah.
to the success.
I mean, if they know what they are entering, and you will give them the key and the steering wheel and all that for a certain project or a certain execution. You want to see they are like a mini CEO or so.
Yes.
For a certain project. You want to make sure that they really can deliver.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Yeah. So
you should be careful with that. I would say that.
okay, good. And your biggest or most the shortfalls that you learned most from?
It's about people. I mean, the most expensive mistakes you make is when you hire the wrong people.
Yeah.
And we have done that so many times, and unfortunately, that's a fact of life. You make bad recruitments every now and then.
Yeah.
And I can say that the biggest mistake was this mobile internet thing that cost us almost cost us the company and forced us to go public. But actually, I think the most expensive mistakes we've done, has been some hirings.
And how do you act on that now? Do you quickly find that this was a mistake and send them out again, or how do you learn from that?
At Axis, we also believe in giving a second chance. So some people who are bad for a certain job, hopefully they learn from it, so they find a better position at another place. And we have actually quite different in the way we act in Sweden versus how we work abroad. Because abroad, it's basically only salespeople, and we are roughly 50% sales, 50% R&D, with some, of course, general overhead. In the sales organization, I mean, the salespeople, they make commission, and a bad sales guy will not make a lot of commission. And that sorts out itself quite quickly normally.
Right. So you actually didn't hire the wrong people all the time. You gave them the wrong job.
Yeah, I mean,
so you see the person more than you see.
I mean, that's a learning curve.
Yeah.
If they work for us for half a year, and then they get to understand the company, and if they are the wrong person, I mean, the first one to realize that is usually themselves. And either they realize I'm dead wrong for the job, this is not my kind of organization, which a few people do.
And you have that kind of frank.
That is the culture.
Meetings.
We have a very
Yes.
strong culture. So we've had onboarding program where we bring in everyone from abroad to Axis. We've been doing that for like 20 years. I mean, that's what people have started doing the last 10 years, I would say. I
That's
think
so
we have been
important.
really early on that.
Yeah. So you have a mixed international culture, and
I mean,
then
in
you
Lund,
can.
it was like 10 years ago, we scrapped the requirement of speaking Swedish.
Great.
That's not a requirement for working for Axis.
I love it.
But we do have a requirement for English.
Yes. You have to
And-
communicate in some way.
Exactly. So then we hired this company in Prague of 220 Czech people.
Yeah.
Guess what? They had a requirement to speak English,
Yeah.
which was a great fit for us. The company was super complimentary. They are 330 now. And they do a certain product line now within the company.
That's cool. So, if you want to give advice, I think in the audience we have plenty of people that want to do a scale-up journey just like you. What would be your best advice for them? If you sum up what we've talked about here, because we're closing in, we have to have leave for questions. But if you want to pull down, do this, don't do that, or never trust your grandmother. I don't know what you want to say.
No, but I think have a strict business way of doing your business. You have to think you have to put yourself in the salesman position, the channel position. Having channel conflicts where you compete with your channel, that's a number one no-no.
Exactly.
So you cannot sell direct and at the same time believe that you can use resellers. That's a complete recipe for failure if you do that.
I know some big companies that are trying to do that actually. So that's good advice. What did you say?
From my side, I would say, especially for the startups, think big, feel that you can do it, engage people with you that have the same feeling and the same thoughts, and act on it. And when you act, focus. Then focus, and then focus. Okay, so you think big, but when you do things, focus and make sure it works. And the result of that will be success. I will almost guarantee that. If you feel it, if you think it, if you think big, but you focus. That would be my
You have
conclusion.
something more. Yes, thank you. But this session hasn't been so much about the product development. So the focus, is it on making the product the best in the world, or is the focus on catching the customers?
I think it's all about catching the customer. I mean, you will always find someone who does something better than you do.
Yes.
I mean, the value long term is always customer relationships.
Yes.
I mean, that's just a fact of life. I think everyone here can raise their arm and if I ask, have you ever bought a really bad product? We do it more or less on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
But why did you buy it to the first with? Well, because you believed in the reputation, the location, the sales guy, whatever. So the world would stop if we didn't have good salespeople.
And
Oh,
customers, yes.
Yes. One of our success in sales has been in looking at the mobile phone manufacturers. We didn't sell to them. We always looked at the customer, which is the end user, and we thought, how can we help you sell more to them? So we looked at user experience, we looked at all that in order to help them. And then the sales came as an effect of they bought our way of thinking. And that also gave us, since we looked at the end user, we looked at trends, and that also brought us to the leader position.
That's the kind of thought leadership that is really trendy today.
Exactly.
But that you were really early with that then.
Yeah. Well, as Martin said, certain things we didn't have time to read all these management books and all that. We were execution. We were players on the ground, not like analytics looking at ourselves. We didn't have time to that. For us, it came naturally. So the breakthrough became when we repositioned us, not as a technology company, but a enabling company. We gave them the software and SDKs and all that. That's number one. Number two is when we looked at the user experience, how we can help them sell to their customers, and then we had these dialogues.
You actually have a brilliant story about how someone in your team that was not a technical developer came with a brilliant idea.
Yes, when that would be, if you want to see that as a conclusion, that would be in the portion of or the context of creating a culture. So one of the things I started at Scalado at that time was the Scalado Day, where everybody could be a king for a day. So we could assemble there, and nobody had any titles, and anybody can come up with any idea. So one of the ideas came from our secretary, who at one time said, well, when I take a picture when we are in a very famous place, there are always people or cars or whatever, in the picture. So I have to take the picture 1, 2, 3 times. It's never perfect. And for instance, and since we did work with imaging and we stitch images when we do 2D or 3D panoramas, we could see parallax and all that in images. So we say, when you take a picture, you actually take several pictures, and some pictures are with the car and some of them are without the car. So if we just take out the car from the picture and we take away that dog or that person, all of a sudden you have a clear picture with only you in the picture. So we did that, and that became an instant success. So
from the user point of view.
Yes, so this person who was non-tech, she was the receptionist, saying that, and the listeners were our developers. They know every bit and byte in whatever we're doing. So in 2 weeks we have the new product and instant success.
That's so cool.
Culture.
I want to open for some questions before we end. We have a mic, so you have to wait for that. Do you have anything? Yes?
Thank you guys for a great presentation and interviews. You both have sold your companies, right? One recently and one in 2012. So can you tell us about the next, like when you sell your company, what do you do next? Is it harder? Is it easier? And so, thanks.
It's also about your identity, I guess, this question.
So Axis, we actually got delisted 1 week ago from the Stockholm Stock Exchange. As you heard, I mean, we did not want to go public to begin with. That was not a goal for us. So actually being non-listed, I think is a good thing, because then we can be more always open than we have been in the past. So when we decided to join Canon, it was because Canon provides a lot of benefits to us that they could do. In terms of, I take IPR, purchasing of components, optical and image technology, and lens technology. And that made so much sense. And then in parallel, Canon is a very different company from, let's say, Sony. So Canon, number one thing that they have always told us is that they guarantee the complete independence of Axis. And they have 100% kept this promise. And Canon, why did they acquire Axis? Was that because they do not know how to make cameras? Of course they do. And if they put focus on surveillance cameras, I'm sure they could do as good cameras as we do. But they don't have a business model. Axis is a business model. It's our indirect way of selling. That's the core of the company. And that's what Canon did not have. And of course, to answer your question, so I love Axis. I keep on working for Axis. Yes, I only work 75%. But yeah, I think we have become a stronger company than we were before.
And for you, how did it change for you? Were you still in the company after the sales for a while?
No. They made a trade sale, and it's Nokia that acquired the technology. So actually, we put all the technology in a new subsidiary. Then they acquired that. Then we had to get rid of all the rest. So and then Microsoft acquired that. I became a small investor, and I actually jumped from one high-risk project to a portfolio of 10 high-risk projects. So I have problems at home because my wife says I work too much. I increased my workload from 200% to I don't know how much. So that's what comes with it. So what I can say, for me, it wasn't a share in the sun, in the pina coladas or whatever. I am an entrepreneur, and I am very involved in helping other entrepreneurs and becoming an advisor and giving back. I have gotten a lot of help and assistance through my time as a player on the ground. I'm still a little bit a great player on the ground, but I'm more an advisor now, and I love to give back if I can, and I'm doing so.
Yes, you are. We are happy to have you.
We're talking about meditation and staying on top of trends, and I was just wondering if you have any advice for how to stay on top of trends, maybe some particular resources that you use.
Well, I'm probably the worst to give advice there, but I would say this: you need to have a balance, and you need to have at least your table or your base should have at least 4 legs. One of them somewhere to stay. You should have keep your relationship to your friends. Don't ignore that, because that will affect your many things. So I would say that was one of the mistakes I did, because I went all in. I worked for 80 to 90 hours a week, which is from early morning to late evening. And my tie was on in the beginning, and in the end I was looking like that. And then next day and next day. So don't do that if you can. Avoid it. And you need social life. So
yes,
yeah,
you need social
you need
life.
social life. Yeah.
And what would you say? How to? I mean, being an entrepreneur is pretty much who you are. So you can't change that. But how can you stay?
No, I mean, you have to have a balanced life. I mean,
Yes.
I was always careful to take my 5 weeks vacation. I did that even in the early days. And the first few years, yes, I was working like crazy. But then I had a rule, and that was never ever work on a Saturday. So Sunday afternoon, yeah, was some work there. But I try to limit it, and I think that's important. Otherwise, if you work too much, I mean, you're not really working well.
So I think we have to end.
We do.
Yes. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Martin. Thanks, Pierre. Thanks,
Thank you.
Mia.
And by that,
Thank you all.
we say thank you to all. Thank you to our heroes.